Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand-Up Speakeasy. I'm Sareth. I am your host, and every single episode I bring a comic from the Central Time Zone and I interview them because I was supposed to go on tour and interview the comics in person, but I was going to spend like 10 to 20 minutes with them while on the road. But now that COVID hit, I get to spend more than that with them, and I'm so happy to do so. And ladies and gentlemen, my guest this evening is Maggie. Hey, Maggie, how are you?
Hey, Sareth, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you for being my guest tonight.
Thank you for having me. This is
Awesome. You're very welcome.
the highlight of
Indeed.
my evening.
Most definitely. Same here. The Broncos aren't doing so great, so this is definitely the highlight of my evening too.
Oh,
So,
I didn't even follow up to see how the Saints were doing. The Saints
uh,
lose if I pay too much attention.
same here. Goes with
Yeah,
me too. I'm like, I'm not gonna
yeah,
pay too much attention. Hopefully they
yeah,
get a comeback. It'll be
yeah.
great.
I
So,
ignore them because I love them.
indeed, I know the exact feeling. Our record shows, so I better stop watching them. So Maggie, you're a comedian based out of Lafayette, Louisiana. What's it like in Lafayette, Louisiana?
Lafayette's real fun, generally, because you get like it's like smack in the middle of the Cajun country. Cajun country. Um, it's the best food for sure. And there's like a lot of cool like history and culture stuff. On a normal year, October would have like 5 or 6 different festivals in it.
Wow.
We didn't get to do that this year, obviously for safety reasons. But if you're ever in Lafayette, another October, there's something called Black Pot, which is like a tiny Cajun Bonnaroo. There's the Black Pot Festival, Festival Acadien et Creole, which is just like Zydeco music and dancing for 3 days and food. And then there's a tiny little village north of Lafayette called Grand Coteau, and some Octobers they hold what they call the Sweet Dough Pie Festival. Is one day and is just a celebration of pies you can hold in your hand.
Wow. That sounds fantastic. I was hoping there would be like a comedy festival because you can't say Lafayette without saying laugh.
Right? Yeah, we
Indeed.
tried to have a punny name for our open mic several years back. It was like the Laughing Yet Sunday Night Mic or something.
Uh,
Yeah,
indeed. It'll get there for sure.
yeah. I feel like there's been a lot of different versions of like Laughing in Lafayette and stuff like that.
Mm, most def. Indeed. Maybe you spell Lafayette with Laugh instead.
Yeah.
Lafayette. So you're also working on being a energy. You're working on your energy. So
Yes.
tell me the story behind that.
Ah. Um. I do not have children. My my actual biological older brother does not have children, but I'm at the age where all of my friends have had kids, and of our original like college friend group, I'm the only one who's met all of the kids. Everybody else, like, they've met their kids, they haven't met everybody else's kids, or they've met one of the kids. Um, now I do. There was one kid born during the pandemic, so I haven't met him yet. So my ultimate aunt status is a little endangered, but
Ah,
hopefully next year I'll get to meet him, and then I will once again be the dominant aunt.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any kids either, but I have two nephews that are biological. My best friend has two kids, so that
Right.
works for me. So,
Back in the day before the human children, I was Aunt Maggie to like a number of pets. There was
ah,
there's like a couple dogs and a lot of cats, and it's like, yeah. So I've just been on this path for a while.
indeed. My best friend has three kids and like a lizard and a cat and a dog. So I totally get you. So indeed.
What kind of
Um,
lizard?
it was like a bearded dragon
Oh yeah.
named Titus or Titan. I think it's Titan.
Nice.
Yeah, but he's a cool one. I'm afraid to pick up lizards, so I'm just like, you just go ahead and pick up. You do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking after a bearded dragon for a friend of mine, and they said like if you tried to pick him up, he would run for it, and that he was very fast and hard to catch. So we just hung out with him in the terrarium, but I would try and feed him like leafy greens, but
Mhm.
he didn't like to eat, like they're omnivorous. They eat bugs, but they also eat foliage. But like if you just put food in front of him, he didn't want it. He wanted you to shake it at him so that he felt like he was catching something. Like
Ah,
he wanted to eat a leaf, but he wanted to feel like he caught it on his own. It's like,
ah. Indeed.
yeah,
My best friend would throw in the, the crickets and stuff, and I'd
yeah.
watch the lizard eat, or the bearded dragon eat it, and I'm like, wow, he's really fast. He looks really slow, but inside the glass thing, what you said, it's like, wow, he's really quick. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. They conserve a lot of energy. They're just like, yeah.
Indeed, most definitely. And so you have an album out called No Show Comedy, a Louisiana album recording.
Ah,
Where did you record it, and what's the whole and all that good stuff? What's the story?
I don't have I I am on that album, but it is not strictly my album. Uh, so there's No Show Comedy, a Louisiana comedy recording is or album recording is a mixtape of like 20-ish comedians from Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. It's got some really strong stuff on it. There's like uh I shouldn't blank. Geneva from New Orleans. I'm blanking on her last name. Her set's really good. Mary Devin Dupuis, Tyler Arsenault had a really good one. Charles Thomas Vadrine from Lafayette, he has a great set on that album. It's real fun. It's a very
Yeah,
fun album to listen to. It's on Spotify and iTunes and the places where recording things are.
I'll
Yeah.
have to listen to it for sure, because that's a really cool idea. Like a
Yeah.
mixtape of comedians.
Yeah.
They need to do that more.
It's super fun.
Indeed, most
That
definitely. I'll definitely listen to that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
If feature I'm pretty sure it features comedy by our mutual friend, Jason Leonard. But I know for a fact that he recorded and engineered it
nice.
because he has every talent.
Indeed, most definitely. I've interviewed him before, and it was just like he was such a cool guy, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm so glad we got to meet. It's so
Hell
awesome.
yeah.
Yep. And so you're pretty awesome too. And I recorded an album myself in Daytona Pool Hall, and
Yeah?
like, yeah, it was pretty dope. The pool tables were pushed to the back, so that no
Okay.
one can, like, you can't hear the balls clink.
Okay. That's
So that
good.
was great, and like it was closed off for the fans, and it was
Yeah.
just perfect. But I called
That's
it
wonderful.
sex jokes and rock and roll is what I called it. So
That's a
it's
good
nothing but
name.
my dirtiest jokes were at 30 minutes, so it's not bad. So
I have like I mean, in addition to like joke notebooks, I have low key just like stashed away album names that I think would be funny.
ah, indeed. Well, I can't
Yeah.
wait till until you release a full album. That's pretty awesome.
That would be awesome.
Indeed, most definitely.
Yeah. The guys that run the No Show comedy show in Baton Rouge, they do have another album coming out soon. So if you just follow No Show on social media, it's No Show Comedy Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There is a new recording coming out, and it's Terrence Delane, Omar Finley, Mike Honore, who has an album called Splenda Afternoon, and myself. That one's gonna be really good.
Gosh, I hear Splendid Afternoon a lot on these interviews. And I'm like, I'm caving in, and I'm gonna listen to that album because everyone says how great it is. And I'm like, all right, I'll cave in and listen to it. So I'll definitely do that after this show for sure.
Yeah. The greatest joy is to catch Mike Honore live because he is a force of nature on stage. But if you can't see Mike Honore live, Splenda Afternoon will do nicely.
Awesome. I'll definitely give it a listen for sure. That's an awesome name too. So um indeed. And so you have a podcast called Rekindled with Jeff and Maggie. Jeff is my
Yes.
best friend's name, the one with the kids and the
Nice.
and yeah, and all that good stuff, and the animals. So tell me the story of the podcast.
Oh, the podcast is quite new. We've done 3 episodes so far, and it's me and my buddy Jeff Manuel. We're both on the older side of millennial, but we are more or less techno natives. We have our phones on us, we have our screens, our tablets, our TVs, etc. Um, and we had kind of talked about how it is very hard to focus long enough to read a book, and how we are people who used to read, and so we decided to make a podcast that makes us read books, and then we hang out and talk about, was it challenging to read that book, was it easy to read that book, um, that sort of thing. But so we did our first episode, and then a hurricane hit, and then we did our second episode, and then another hurricane hit, and our third episode, we didn't even finish the book we were reading. We just, after several delays and reschedulings, we just sat down and talked about making it through hurricanes. Yeah.
Indeed. When Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irma hit where I live, I was like super bummed, and like
Yeah.
there was a theater in like in St. Augustine, which is like the oldest city in America. And
Yeah.
it was like my favorite theater, and I was like, why don't we just have a comedy festival and raise funds for this place? And we did it, and
Yeah.
I put it together. We raised $300 for it, but hardly anyone appeared. Like it was rough, but
Yeah.
it gave me the option to like create a comedy festival with like all kinds of cool things like sketch and improv and podcasting and stuff. So
Right
in
on.
the end, I learned so much from it. It was fantastic. Even though we only raised 300, I was hoping to raise more, but 300 was pretty good.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Indeed, most definitely. And so, Maggie, you picked two organizations and GoFundMe's to raise funds for this during the podcast. The first is DSA, the SWLA, Hurricane Laura, and Delta Mutual Aid Fund, and I'm so happy they're almost to their goal. And
Yeah.
so, if you're watching out there in the future, right now, donate to them. They're almost there, and that'd be awesome of you. And the 232 help. And why did you pick those two organizations to donate to?
I picked those two because in this wild year that we have lived through, those are the two organizations I've had the most contact with. So with Southwest Louisiana DSA Mutual Aid, I am friends with them. I'm not a member. I'm not a card carrying member myself, but I've seen them in action as they were helping people through Laura, Delta, Zeta. They've been really on the ground and really like hoofing it to do a lot of work and a lot of help for people that isn't like, there's some stuff the Red Cross is just not going to do for you. But through mutual aid, people were able to meet a lot of needs that are a little bit trickier for the big organizations to do. And then 232 Help is the Louisiana version of 211, the crisis hotline. And I've actually been working with them off and on since the summer. And that's really good because, like, if you have a problem and you're just not sure how to solve it, you can call 211 in your state or 232 Help in Louisiana, and an operator will answer, and they will try to find you an organization in your part of the world, in your part of the state, that handles the kind of problem that they're having. So, like, if, like an older relative is suddenly facing disability and they need like a ramp set up at their house, or their bathroom sort of with new handles or what have you, you can call 211 and they'll try and find an organization in your area that'll, or nationally, that'll handle that sort of thing. A lot of folks around here, because of COVID, because of unemployment, a lot of people are not able to pay their whole utility bill. They call 232 Help. They try and 232 Help tries to connect them with an agency that's helping with that sort of thing. So it's a lot of people doing everything they can to meet any need they can find. And it's been a rough year, but it's also been really inspiring to watch people do the work.
Indeed, most definitely. And I love that you're helping out with both of them. And like when Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana and most of the states in that area,
Yeah.
holy moly, like Some of them moved. We had some move to Colorado, and we
Mhm.
helped get them like 6 months free rent and paid some of their utilities and all that
Nice.
stuff. And I'm like, we got to help each other even when the big old guys can't help us.
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's like sometimes it's like that ground level, that grassroots, that we can do this if we
Yeah.
pull up, tie our shoestrings together, and march and do all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic indeed,
It's-
and I'm so glad you're raising funds for those fine folks there, and I'm hoping to raise funds for you. So Maggie's Venmo is scrolling on the bottom, and her Twitter's. If you want to follow her on Twitter, that'd be fantastic too. So
That'd be very cool. I would be honored, and I would try and uh, produce content worth following.
indeed, most definitely. And so
Yeah.
Maggie, these are the questions. The next segment is the questions I usually ask the comics I've interviewed, and I've
Okay.
interviewed like over 500 comedians,
Nice.
and it's pretty awesome, getting inside their brain and finding out how they work, their mind works, and all that stuff. So with that being said, Maggie, what
All right.
inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
Ooh. I grew up with stand-up comedy. Started watching it when I was real little. And then when I hit like my teens, I would watch a lot of comedy and try and like recite it as close or verbatim as possible to my friends. And over time, it was like, man, it'd be really cool to write comedy. And then I was in my early 20s, I was completely certain beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was funny, but I was not ever going to be comfortable enough on stage to do comedy. And then I kind of toyed with the idea of trying to find a more gregarious friend and then them letting me write comedy for them. But the problem was that like all my gregarious friends are dudes, and all of my humor is about being like a small woman in the world. Um, so eventually just I had to just grow a spine and decide to go on stage myself. And once I did that, there was like no going back. I was addicted.
Awesome. And when you first went on stage, what was it feeling like when you first performed on stand-up comedy?
Uh, the first one, it felt like being intoxicated because I was intoxicated. I went to an open mic here in Lafayette at a place called JP's. Rest in peace, JP's. And I had it in my head that because I was very clear, like this is my first time doing an open mic. So I assumed that they were just gonna like kick me out on stage first go and get it over with. And they ended up putting me like seventh or eighth. And so there was like the hour from when sign up started to when the show started, and then another hour. And that gave me time to just pound drinks and anxiety. So by the time they called my name, I was turned. And so my first show was not by classic standards good. I was messy and drunk and my jokes weren't great, but I wasn't afraid. I had a lot of fun, and then everyone was really nice to me, so I just kept coming back.
Indeed, most definitely. And you mentioned that growing up you watched a lot of comedy, and I want to know your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums are.
Ooh, I think that the first like when I was 10 or 11 years old, I went to somebody's house and they had Comedy Central on, and I'd never seen Comedy Central, and it was a Rita Rudner special. And she was in a ball gown and she was making jokes about being like a terrible housewife, and I thought that was brilliant. And then a few years after that, one of my local radio stations played clips of Bob Newhart's A Button Down Mind over the radio. And I thought that was some of the funniest, like dry, witty stuff I'd ever heard. And so I tried to memorize that and recite it to other people. And I listened to a lot of George Carlin as a kid, like too much George Carlin at too young an age.
You're never too young for George Carlin.
that's
I'm
why
kidding.
that's why he was the Mr. Conductor on Shiny Time Station. It's fine.
Indeed, most definitely. And so, uh, some of those folks have been on TV and film, and I want to know what your favorite sitcom, sketch shows, and comedy films are.
Ooh, okay. sitcoms, sketch shows, and comedy films. Okay, comedy films like feature films that are comedies or comedy specials.
Comedy films.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
movies. Yeah.
Favorite sitcoms. Favorite sitcoms. I just finished The Good Place. I really like that one. Trying to think of a sitcom from my childhood that like holds up. Man, I really like lived my life around Fresh Prince when I was a kid. Like Monday nights were very important. And like doing the Carlton around the house and stuff.
Indeed.
I think of the sitcoms I watched as a kid, Fresh Prince probably holds up the best. And you can revisit it and appreciate new things about it. Let's see. Sketch shows. We also watched a lot of In Living Color when I was a kid, and we quoted Homie the Clown like crazy. Like if you did your laundry and then you had socks in your hand, you had to hit somebody with the socks and quote Homie the Clown because that was what you did. Let's see. For movies, there is a comedy movie that I am like evangelical about because I love it so much, and I feel like pretty much no one's ever seen it. It's called For a Good Time Call, and it's about these two unwilling roommates in Manhattan who end up operating a phone sex line together, and it's maybe the best rom-com ever written, but it is actually about friendship, and I love it so much. And it's good cameos.
Wow. I need to watch that because I'm a sucker for rom-coms, and I'm like, uh, I
Yeah.
just love them. And like,
It
I'll go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's just like if you take all the tropes of like from enemies to lovers, but it's instead of from enemies to lovers, it's enemies to best friends, but it hits all the tropes of a rom-com about a platonic friendship, and also there's all the dirty jokes of a phone sex line. It's like it's so well balanced. The jokes are so good. I love it so much.
Awesome. I can't wait to watch it now. It's pretty awesome. And like, I can totally relate to DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because I'm always getting thrown out of people's houses. So I'm kidding. I'm not that bad of a company. And like, when it comes to Living Color, my favorite sketches were the dozens when Jamie Foxx was talking about people's moms.
Oh my god. I didn't even remember. I don't think I understood that one when I was a kid. So
Oh,
I'm like, oh, what?
it was fantastic. He battled Ed O'Neill from Married with Children on one of the episodes, and it was so good. And I'm like, man. And then I went home and I studied all the Yo Mama jokes, and I was in middle school at the time. And I talked about everybody's moms on the bus, on the playground, everywhere. It was fantastic.
Oh, I do. That is like the archaeology of humor is like when you're a kid and you learn about your mama jokes.
Yeah, it's the best. And like, I got roasted. That was my very first comedy show that I was a part of, was my roast. And my best friend remembered it, and he wrote down like a bunch of your mama jokes, and he roasted everyone's moms on the panel. And he kept on getting at me, and like, my friend's mom had recently passed, and he was on the panel, and he kept on going at him with the mama jokes, and he's like,
Oh,
my mom passed away. He goes, I know, but he kept on going anyway.
oh my god,
So horrible, but so,
that is a commitment. Oof.
yeah. I'll send you the link, and you're gonna be like, this is the best hour on YouTube. Like, I think one of the best anyways. So
Yeah.
um if you can go on tour with any comedian, locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
Ooh. Hmm. Um. I think it would be really fun to go on tour with Dan Van Kirk. Because he was on tour here. Uh. All right. Dan Van Kirk came through with a buddy of ours, a comedian from Texas, and I got to open for him here. And then after the show, we were all hanging out, having some drinks, and Dan was talking to my now ex-boyfriend, who's a food tour guide, a Cajun food tour guide, and Dan was like, "Oh my god, like really?" Because he's like, "We tried to book that for tomorrow, but it didn't work out." And uh, my friend the tour guide was like, "Well, we didn't have enough people for the tour tomorrow. How about I just pick you up at your hotel and we'll build you a food tour and we'll bring you to these places." And Dan was like, "Yeah, totally." The comedian from Texas, whose name is Andrew, was like, "Yeah, totally." He was both super down. They're both super down. Saturday morning, we meet up with them, we take them to a couple places. The difference was if you go on an organized food tour, you go to like 5 or 6 places, and each place gives you like a sample of stuff. But then at the end of it, you've eaten like a whole meal of food. Because this was kind of impromptu and thrown together, we just went a bunch of places and ate like whole meals. And so by like the third place, Dan Van Kirk was still like, "This is the greatest. I'm having so much fun." And the other comedian, Andrew from Texas, was like, "I'm in pain and this is not fun anymore." And even though I watched Andrew go through that, I think it would be really funny to be on tour with Dan Van Kirk and just him like go full tilt towards something and just have to keep up.
Indeed, that's so awesome. Yeah, he Andrew and Dan both toured in Jacksonville at Rain Dogs. It
Yeah,
might have been the same tour, and
very probably.
I got to interview Andrew in Daytona when he rolled with a couple of friends from Houston, and then
Nice.
but I caught him again in with Daniel, and his last like everything, when he spots his family and friends in the crowd, gets. I was like, this is the most amazing closing thing ever.
Oh,
And
he's so much fun. Oh, he's so good live.
indeed, most definitely, I have them both of their interviews, and I'll send them as soon as we say.
Nice.
And I'll send your interview that in that way too. So that'd be
Yeah.
awesome. And let's see here in the local comic, who would you go on tour with?
Ooh, local comic. Um, Joey Thibodeau. Because that is my life mate, my quarantine mate. Uh, I think we would travel well together. My buddy Shelby Shone, he and I get along really well. I feel like we would have simpatico. Have you're probably talking about who would be fun on the shows, and I'm just thinking of like the intricacies of spending every day with someone for weeks or months. Um, No, I mean, I'm pretty proud of all our local comedians. So like in terms of sharing like billing or stage time with any of them, I'm like, yeah, anybody, let's do this. Um, in terms of like touring and driving habits and like personal habits that I think are totally normal. Yeah, Joey, Shelby, actually my friend Sarah Brown, she I think she and I would I think she and I could make a really good tour together. Uh, because we zero in on the kind of the same things that are funny without repeating each other's jokes. So I think if we really put our minds to it, we can make like a really fun hour that we could take on the road.
Indeed, most definitely. And let's see here. If you can get roasted by 5 comedians, past and present, which comedians would you like to get roasted by?
Ooh. Um ooh. Hmm. I mean Don Rickles. Like if he could just say mean things to my face, that'd be pretty great. Because I feel like that's an experience. Um, who else do I want to get roasted by? Uh, let's see. Mike Lawrence is really good at writing roast jokes. And he was actually here back in 2015 and did a bunch of crowd work that was essentially just like roasting people on site. And he roasted my date, but I did not get roasted, and I did feel a little left out. Um, let's see. That one's really tough to come up with 5. Who are your roast people?
Oh, since I've already been roasted, I'll just name them on air. Charlie McMullen was my roast master. He's in
Okay.
Memphis and is in Colorado. John Brown was a comedian in Colorado that roasted me. My friend Patrick was my roaster. My best friend Sean. I consider this guy my other best friend, Mike Sword. He was a musician, sound guy, and a band that I used to manage. The lead singer, his name is James Curtis. He was my roaster too. So those were my roasts. I don't think I'll ever go through one again because
Yeah.
nothing can top that roast. Like it's just that good. Like they went for my throat. Like they were talking about how I'm Asian and I eat cats and dogs, and they were just like so brutal to me, and it was just they worked the Ninja Turtles joke in there because they say I look like a Ninja Turtle, and they were just.
But like, which Ninja Turtle though?
I love Michelangelo. He's my favorite, and
Yeah.
I actually bought a Michelangelo hoodie. Because they said, the M stands for Monet because my last name is Ney, and Monet is an artist too. So they
Nice.
said it on stage one time in Jacksonville. My friend, he just lost it, and I'm like, all right, I'll keep that in my set. So at least I have one more second of clean material in my set. So that's maybe a couple seconds. So.
Oh man. We had a roast battle here back in 20. I've only been on one roast so far. It was in 2017, and my dear hilarious friend Ken Edwards roasted me, and the judges panel went 5-0 in Ken's favor, and I was so butthurt about it that I got booted off stage, and then I went over to the big tub of comedy beer that had been set out for that evening, and having only eaten one time that day, so I was basically running on an empty stomach. I just started drinking like a monster and got like peak, let me talk to the manager, like white lady drunk, and just stood at the edge of the stage like yelling for the rest of the night. It was rough.
I bet. I interviewed Ken, and it was a pretty cool experience. I had a little bit of technical difficulties because it was like on my end and like his
Mm,
end, and then it was just like, but we powered through it, and I think his answers came out clear. So as long as his
that's
answers came
good.
out clear, I was happy. So for
Ken
sure,
is Ken is easily one of the coolest people in the world. He
indeed.
just chill and just doing his own thing all the time.
Indeed. That's the vibe I got from like through the computer, and it was just such a fine fella. I dig it for sure. He's awesome. And let's see here. Where do you see your comedy career in the next 5 years?
Ooh. Hopefully getting to be on the road again. Uh Getting to be on the road enough to get my joke writing legs back under me, cuz I feel like this year was a I wrote jokes this year, but it's like I wrote like 4 jokes in a year, and I used to write like 4 jokes in a week. Um, so it just feels like it, it feels like being stuck in neutral. But in the next 5 years, I'd like to be like on the road, doing more work, and hopefully working toward like more disciplined writing.
Indeed,
Yeah.
most definitely. And speaking of writing, which other forms of comedy would I venture off into? You have your podcast too, so like improv, sketch, directing, acting, etc.
Um, I think I would like to do long form writing and like a I should really work on sketch writing. The problem with sketch writing is at some point in the last 2 years, I had one perfect idea for a sketch. Like it would basically write itself. But I did not physically write it down when the idea occurred to me. And then anytime I sit down and try and write a sketch, all I can think about is that one that got away because I don't remember what it was about. But I should really work on sketch because I think my concept of like absurd situations to be in is pretty strong. Uh, but I think I should. There's a weird part of my brain. I shouldn't say this on a recording. I shouldn't say this where this can come back to bite me in the ass. There's a part of me that wants. Have you ever seen the TV show Dairy Girls on
I
Netflix?
I don't have Netflix, believe it or not. I know.
That's I also don't technically have it. I people just log into things on my TV and the TV just remembers it. But Dairy Girls is a TV show about teenagers in Northern Ireland in the 90s during the Troubles. And it is so funny. And the character writing is so strong. And the sense of place is so strong. And there is a terrible, dumb voice in the back of my head that says that I could write something like that about Louisiana. Because it is such a specific place to be. And the characters here are so specific. And so rich and so much to work with, but I haven't sat down to do it, so I shouldn't even. I should just do it or not talk about it at all.
I say go for it. You never know. It'll blossom into something amazing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Indeed. And let's see. What is your favorite joke a comic has ever written?
Ooh. Hmm. That's a good one. One of our local comedians, his name's Rhett Conscian. He wrote a joke that I still think is so perfect. It's so simple. The gist of the joke is cell phones kept getting smaller for the longest time. They started out huge, and then they got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then one day someone realized that you could take pictures of boobies with them. And then they started getting bigger and bigger and bigger until they were like, we don't need the keyboard. The screen is the keyboard. We need all screen all the time. The whole phone needs to hold pictures of titties. And I think that joke is hilarious.
That's brilliant. That's awesome.
In terms of like just observing things about modern day life, I was just like, oh, that is so good. It's just a clear picture. Man, this phone's so small, it fits. Oh no.
Indeed. That's great stuff.
And it's his joke. He tells it better than I do. That was the Cliff's Notes version of it. That's the wiki summary of the joke, but yeah.
Indeed. I can't wait to see it live for sure. Indeed. Let's see here. What experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
I think the specifically what I would like people to experience from my set is fun aunt energy. Like if you've ever had like the aunt who didn't have a family and she just goes off and does her own stuff and then she pops up randomly and she's like really fun for a very short amount of time and then she leaves again. That's the vibe I'm going for.
Indeed. Most definitely. And let's see here. For this segment of the show is you get to nominate my future guests. So with that said, who's your favorite open micer that you'd like to see on the show?
I don't know. Well, should my nomination be defined by whether or not someone's already been nominated? Because I don't know who else done this.
Me neither. Well, I do have a list, but like they haven't reached back out to me yet, so I'm still waiting for them to. But if it happens, it happens.
All right. Then I'll give you, I think, and I'm going for Lafayette people.
Yep.
Okay. Since you already got Ken, I want to say my top 3 would be Charles Thomas Vadrine, Sarah Brown, and I know you already got Joey Thibodeau, so I'm going to say Shelby Schoen.
Awesome. And favorite feature comic?
Ooh, favorite feature comic. That one, sorry. We're all open micers and we're all feature comedians eventually. Let's see. Feature comic. I already said, let's see. Who else we got? I'm just kind of blanking. Vaughn Vaillant out of Baton Rouge. That is my comedy brother. Like we're twinsies in our own way, and that we don't really look like in any way, shape, or form. And then you already got Jason. Coleman Wilson is a real sweetheart. He's a good comedian. Coleman could be doing musical comedy, but he doesn't, and he does his comedy and his music separately, and I really appreciate that about him. But he could be really funny. He could do really good musical comedy if you really really wanted to. But yeah, it's fine. All right, yeah, I'm going with Coleman.
Awesome. And your favorite headliner?
Where?
In Lafayette or Louisiana, if that helps.
Oh, favorite headliner in Louisiana? Mike Honoré.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And your favorite host?
Ooh, that is a good one. Let's see. Omar Fenley is a delightful host. But I also really enjoy Benjamin Hoffman out of New Orleans.
Awesome.
He brings a great charisma modifier to any host set.
Sweet. And your favorite showrunner / show producer?
Ooh. Man, you know why? The other reason why this is hard to do is just I haven't seen anybody in ages. I haven't seen anybody in so long. Doobie doobie doo. Showrunner, producer. Terrence Delane from No Show Comedy. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to reach out to all of those folks. And if you want, you can have them reach out to me. And I put my email in the description box below too. So feel free to reach out to me and all that good stuff. And we'll get you on the show.
Sweet.
Indeed. And so, Maggie,
Sareth.
Hey, we have your Twitter on the bottom there, so follow Maggie on Maggie for Beers at Maggie for Beers and donate to her Venmo as well. You'll see that scrolling on the bottom and in the description box below. And also make sure to donate to the Hurricane Laura Mutual Aid. Their GoFundMe is scrolling too. It's on the bottom, and as well as 232 Help. That'd be fantastic. And Maggie, is there any final words you'd like to give to the audience this evening?
Let's see. Here's a word that I like the sound of, but I never use it in a sentence because I'm not confident of what it means. Solipsistic. I only hear smart people say it, and I am not confident enough to use it. I should really just look it up.
Indeed. I'll definitely have to look it up too because I'm a journalist, and I just like my journalism teacher says, think of the acronym KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And I'm like, all right, I'll keep all my articles simple, no big words. So biology, goodbye. And I'll just call it a rose. I'm not gonna call it the scientific form. I'm just gonna call it a rose.
Oh, journalism.
Deal with it.
Oh, journalism. That's actually the job that I left after 9.5 years was local print news.
Wow. What was your topics that you covered?
I didn't have an official beat because I was my job title was parajournalist, which if you Google that, it says it's someone who writes about ghosts. That is not what I did, but they usually let me write like feature stories, a lot of like advancers on local culture and stuff like that. One of the last real news stories I ever wrote was a follow-up about a felony animal cruelty case in St. Landry Parish, Louisiana. But the headline is Earl the Llama recovering from gunshot wounds.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I think about like my journalism teacher is saying kiss and the rose in biology class. It's like kiss from a rose, seal, boom.
Exactly.
Indeed.
The Batman soundtrack of 1997. Very, very important.
Very important indeed. I started off as a concert journalist in Los Angeles after I graduated from Colorado, and I would get paid to go to these concerts, and I'm like, this is the dream job.
Yeah.
Like Sunset Strip, 2010 to 2014.
Oh,
and I was like on the Sunset Strip almost every single night, and it was so awesome. And I got to see everyone I grew up listening to from like the 90s, and then I felt like I was in like a time machine because it took me all the way back to the 60s, and it wasn't supposed to take me back to the 60s because I got to see a UFO and at the Key Club, and I got to see the living members of the Doors playing at the House of Blues, and they had like Linda Perry step in to do the Jim Morrison's parts, and also like Sugar Ray from Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, and it was just like all these other people that were like stepping in for Jim Morrison. It was just so awesome. It was just like this
That
is like
sounds like a hell of a show.
it was a lot of fun indeed. And it was part of the Sunset Strip Music Festival. So there was like Black Label Society and The Offspring and the RZA and Quiet Riot. And it was just like, this is a pretty cool festival. They shut down the Sunset Strip just
Yeah.
for this festival. But
Dang.
it was wild for sure.
That
But
does sound like you time traveled.
yeah, it was a lot of fun for sure. I was like the dream job, but I moved back to Colorado, did more journalism, but I was like, I'm tired of writing all about the big guys. I want to write about my hometown.
Yeah.
And then I read about the comics and I even interviewed them for my podcast. And I said, I'm moving to Florida. Just want 3 bands, 3 comics to send me on my way. I tagged one member of each band, didn't think, anything of it. They're like, we all want in on this. I'm like, all right, I'll book everybody. And then that's how my festival was born. So it was naturally born. And so I'm stuck with it for like 8 years now. And so I was like, all right, fine. So everyone looks forward to it in my hometown. It's a small little city called Pueblo, Colorado. But like it's like the most anticipated event of the summer. And I'm like, this is fantastic. And everyone gets compensated too, and they love it. Like they all just want the shirts though, and I'm like, okay, you guys can have the shirts because it comes from my brain, and they love it, and I'm like, this is fantastic. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, indeed, journalism, right? The power of journalism. It's
the power of journalism.
Indeed, I can't even. It's awesome. Only if you do it right, and then because there's some people that are just bad with journalism and they shouldn't be journalists. So
agreed.
I keep this like 100% truthful, honest, and unbiased, and that's why there's no ads on my site, and there's and I have you all like I'm not twisting your words or nothing like that. So I'm just like this is live in your face. Watch it if you want to. So, yeah, indeed, awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for being my guest on this show tonight.
Well, thank you so much for having me and your patience for scheduling.
Awesome. You're very welcome. And I look forward to meeting you in Lafayette, Louisiana when I tour there in the near future. Or when you come here and tour, I'll help you set up
next year.
That'd be fantastic. I'll help you set up shows like Dan did and Andrew did and all that stuff. So
good times.
Indeed, Maggie.
Wonderful.
And thank you so much for being my guest this evening, and I'll see you next time. Awesome. And for everyone else, donate to all those Venmos and Hurricane Laurel Mutual Aid and to help, and that'd be fantastic. And follow Maggie on Twitter, and that'd be awesome of you. Until next time on the Speakeasy, I'm Sareth for Maggie.